No, I'm not having a bad hair day. I'm having a Where's Hunter day. I'm going to wear this cap. I'm not a big baseball cap guy. I'm going to wear this cap the whole show today. Welcome to National Pulse. I'm Raheem Kassam, editor-in-chief of thenationalpulse.com, joined in studio by attorney and contributor to the National Pulse, Thomas Farnan, the author of TheRussiaLie.com. And I just want to give you guys an example of just how much people love this audience. You know, we've got Steve Cortez, he always wants to be on here from the Trump campaign. Get congressmen always contacting me, wanting to come on. We're really grateful for them. Jim Banks and Paul Gosar and others who have joined us. Lots of people from the think tank world and the activist world. But I think this is the furthest someone has driven to be with us in person today, all the way from Pittsburgh. Was it 4-hour drive, Thomas?
4-hour drive.
Well, we're really grateful for it, really grateful for your time today. We'll get to Tom in just a moment, but I want to remind you guys, or actually I'll tell you this. This is gonna send you into a little bit of a head spin here. So I have a story open on my laptop in front of me right now that is waiting to be published. And it's more from the drive, and it's really interesting stuff from the hard drive from hell. But I ran up against the beginning of this show, so I haven't been able to press publish yet. And I can't press publish until I copy edit the article. I can't copy edit the article while I'm talking to you. But you still want the show. You see how this is being torn in two directions here. But we'll be getting this story up, really interesting one, over the course of the show today. In the breaks, in those 2-minute breaks that I get, we'll be making sure that more from the hard drive from hell goes up on thenationalpulse.com. And I do want to take a moment to thank everybody out there, from this Real America's Voice audience, to the National Pulse audience, to the War Room audience, to the people who do things. Look, we're just looking at computer screens here. That's all I'm doing. You're the ones out there spreading this, talking to your neighbors, talking to your friends, talking to family members, emailing it to people, tweeting it at people, dropping it in different Facebook groups that you're members of. I see it. I look for the links every day. I see who you are, and I see the actions you're taking. You know we can do that? If you look for the hyperlink URL on a social media channel, you can see who's sharing it. So to all of you out there who yesterday gave us the biggest traffic day in National Pulse history. Remember, this site is 5 years old. I took it over in January, and we've been growing ever since. So to all of you who have taken part in that, I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart. You're really kind. I know it's the news, and you're not doing it out of kindness so much as urgency, but I thought I'd thank you anyway. Look, there's a lot to cover here today on the show, and I want to start by giving you a little bit of a teaser on the story we're breaking. So CEFC, as a lot of you will know, is this energy firm that Hunter Biden was working with. Lots of euphemistic emails on the hard drive from hell about working with CEFC. This was the original New York Post story. It's the story that Jack Dorsey says he won't allow the New York Post to tweet ever again until it deletes stories. He said that this morning in his hearings with Ted Cruz on Capitol Hill and the rest of them up there. But Cruz was specifically going after him on the New York Post stuff. Why can't the New York Post still tweet? What has it been, 14 days, 15 days now since they first broke the story, and they still can't tweet? That's because CEFC, this company, and I know the guys over at Real America's Voice are going to try and get this up on the screen for you as well. Look, Hunter Biden, he says this. I'll tell you exactly what the story says. No more euphemisms. He says, I am unequivocally stating, with no room for different opinions or interpretation, I am not in a JV with CEFC, joint venture. I am not partners with CEFC. I am not employed nor funded by CEFC. My expenses, because this is all about expenses, because it's Hunter Biden, my expenses will not be reviewed by any CEFC employee. The president of CEFC has no right nor ability to terminate HW3, Hudson West. And then he goes on, and here's the big reveal. Hunter Biden angrily emailing about his expenses. I want my expenses, including my house in Sweden. Oh yeah. He says, I am not all of those things. I'm not in a JV. I'm not partners with. I'm not employed nor funded by CEFC. He says, I am the managing director of CEFC. Are you now? Are you the son of the Vice President of the United States? Are you really the managing director of an energy company which works with the Chinese military? Is that the admission you've just made in this email, Hunter? I know you're watching. Out there in the Pacific Palisades. Kick your shoes off. Settle in. It's going to be a great show, Hunter. At the end of the email, something that stuck out to you, Tom, I know. He says, signs off, as he does with every email, sincerely, our Hunter Biden. And then underneath, managing director, partner, and 50% equity owner. Why did he do that?
He wants everyone to know that he's in charge and that he's the one that calls the shots. And even the tone of that email that you're going to put up is that. It's him saying, I'm in charge here and I call the shots of this company. The idea that Twitter won't put this out because somehow it's not verified, when not only is it verified, it's being corroborated as it was last night on Tucker's show. This is on its amazing suppression of a very important story that the American people have a right to hear before this election.
Well, Tom, we're really grateful to have you with us in studio here. You and I went through some of this drive last night as the Tony Bolinski interview was taking place, got a bit of inspiration of what Tony was saying with Tucker Carlson. We'll be back with Thomas Farman, The National Pulse, Raheem Kassam, thenationalpulse.com. We'll see you in a second. Welcome back to the National Pulse. Grateful for everybody in the live chat who give me live feedback on the show. Releasing this story right now that you, this audience, just got the premiere, the exclusive on Hunter Biden throwing his weight around in these emails with his CEFC partners. You know, you want to look at who's on email with him, where you Mervyn Yan, Gong Wen Dong, who's also known as Kevin Dong. And of course, Uncle Jim, good old Uncle Jim. Uncle Jim's on those emails. Uncle Jim's always doing the deals. Uncle Jim's buying. Remember I told you? Do you remember I told you guys 10 years ago? Uncle Jim was the one with the US Virgin Islands. Remember that on Water Island? We talked about that. Why did I talk about that? Why was it relevant that Jim Biden was flipping properties in the US Virgin Islands on Water Island? And why is the media over the course of this last summer, by the way, nobody was making accusations back then of what Joe Biden was potentially doing the US Virgin Islands, whether maybe his kickback account was based there, maybe they were flipping properties, maybe he had some property in Trump, who knows, right? Good questions. But I told you 10 days ago, it's relevant. And you know what's interesting? It's just interesting. I'm not making any allegations. It's interesting how in these emails, all these family members, including Joe, or Peter Henderson, as he goes by, in these emails. Peter Henderson, Stingray, he's selling Zillow links, property links around the family. Same thing. What are these properties? What's going on here? We're going to get to the bottom of it. I want to turn now to the author of The Russia Lie, which you can get at therussialie.com. Thomas, really grateful for you joining us here in studio. So one of the reasons I wanted to bring you in here, and I jumped at the opportunity when you offered to come down and take a look with me, was there are so many people out there who still live under a rock, tweeting at me going, this is fake, this is obviously not real, otherwise, CNBC would be covering it, and ABC would be covering it. And so I wanted to show it to you. You're an attorney, you're a smart guy. I wanted to show you and get your vibe on it. What do you think? Does it look real to you?
It looked very real. It's Federal Rule of Evidence 902 talks about self-authenticating documents where you can overcome an objection in federal court to present certain documents. And I think some and a lot of these are self-authenticating. I think they're also corroborated. They may not have been corroborated on the day it was first produced. You had Rudy Giuliani saying we have a chain of custody here. It was abandoned shop, and people were questioning that story. They didn't have any reason to question it. It was a very solid story. But that story, in the time that has elapsed since then, we have corroboration. We have the partner in the main email, the 10% held H for the big guy. Another person on that email has come forward, and he has said, I want to talk about this. I received the email, it's corroboration, and he's very offended that he's been called a source of disinformation. And he said last night he's not a Republican, he's not political, but he wants the American people to know this story. And it's really a shame that they're burying this story. They're not burying this story because they're concerned about its authentication or veracity. They're making that up. They're concerned that it will hurt Joe Biden.
I would love it if somebody came out and showed me some evidence as to why I shouldn't believe the things on this drive. Not least because I'd get my evenings back. Yeah. I could stop looking through it and go through it every evening. The radio hit at 7:30 in the morning. If you know anything about me, I didn't know there was a 7:30 in the morning. And so we're working around the clock on this stuff at the moment, finding out more and more. I mean, just before we came into the studio today, you actually found something pretty unique to your neck of the woods, your part of the world, in Pennsylvania, right?
I had gone through so much. What was that?
The homophobic comments.
Oh, yeah, it was some comments that Hunter Biden and his friends were deciding to go to a weekend at Rehoboth Beach, and they were actually quite homophobic. And I'm sure if there was someone in front of Joe Biden while he was in the Senate that was trying to be a federal judge, and he saw the emails, he would be very critical. That sort of thing. There's that. There's a lot on there. It's difficult to search. I think there's something like 27 emails.
Oh, that was just one folder.
One folder.
There's 112,000 emails on that thing.
Okay. And, more than likely, Raheem and Raheem's staff and me coming down for a couple of hours, not going to find everything. The amazing thing to me is, look back, a year ago, this was a story that Politico was willing to cover. There's on August 2nd, 2019, Politico runs a story called Biden, and the subheadline is "Over his decades in office, scare quotes, middle-class family fortunes have closely tracked his political career." And it goes through a lot of these connections. And they turn to Joe Biden, "Can you give some kind of explanation?" And he says, "I have no knowledge of it, and I'm not involved at all."
Right.
And we learned over the last week that that's not true. He has knowledge. He's involved. He's the big guy. He's very involved here. And that should cause more questions from the press when they've been lied to like this. It should cause a feeding frenzy on this issue. But it hasn't done that. And that is an attempt to affect the election.
Look, I get that there are all. I'm going to go to a break in just a second, but I get that there are all of these DC media organizations that are in the tank for Biden, right? But you would think that somebody, in fact, let me do it this way so that we can grab a clip for social media, talking to the journalists in Washington, D.C., and on the campaign trail. Your boss is maybe in the tank for Biden. You may even be for Joe Biden. No, you're liberals, most of you. But where is that little spark of journalistic integrity? Do you remember how you felt when you were studying journalism in New York, wherever you studied it, and you just thought, yeah, I'm gonna expose the bad people in the world. The bad people. Remember that feeling? That tiny little niggling feeling? Just tap into that for a second. And if you want to come over for a bottle of wine, we can go through the hard drive together. We'll be right back in just a second. You see, now I have hat hair, so I have to wear the hat for the whole show. So, Hunter Biden, you're stuck with that. Welcome back to the National Pulse. I'm Raheem Kassam, joined in studio by Thomas Farn, an attorney and the author of Russia.com. Certainly taught me a lot about the lies that were told to us over the course of the whole collusion and interference, Russian interference. And here we are again. Here we are again. The same old arguments, the same old stories. I've been so busy with this thing for the last couple of days, week, or 10 days or however long it's been out there now, because I haven't had to listen. I haven't subjected myself to the Annaros talking. I'm not tuned into The View. I don't know what these people are saying. It would infuriate me, having seen it myself in front of me, for these idiots, these collaborators, these running dogs who are surely on television. Brian Stelter, it's fake. Stelter impression. Tom, we saw this all before, the interference narrative, but actually from what we saw this morning and the big tech hearings, it's not Russia that's interfering. It's Silicon Valley that's interfering. And who's Silicon Valley in league with? CCP, the Communist Party of China. So if there's any foreign intervention in this election, in this current election, is there any doubt in your mind the Chinese Communist Party is more likely to be interested in that happening rather than, Putin?
Yeah, I don't think they're trying to hide that. I think some of the information we get out of China is they're right up front and they're saying we want Joe Biden. I don't think the Silicon Valley is trying to hide that either. But what they're doing here is, we should call strikes and balls the same for both sides. And they're changing the strike zone when it comes to Joe Biden. And that is fundamentally unfair. Had any of this happened to Trump or his family in the weeks in advance of election, it's all you would doubt. There would be a special prosecutor already. And this is the unfairness people in the country sense. And part of the enthusiasm you see at Trump's rallies is, people are very much a victim of Washington's fixed game. And they see Trump as someone who can push his way through it. And that is, as neat a description of Trumpism as there can be.
Yeah. In the car on the way over here, I said to you, there needs to be something like a great reform bill, a great reform act right now. We're driving past the Capitol building. I hope you don't mind me telling the story. You say it. What did you turn to me and you say? When you used to have this patriotic reverence for these institutions as a kid?
I said, we drove by the Capitol building, and I'd come to Washington, D.C. every couple of years. I came in 6th grade with my family. Most people in the Northeast do. And you have a patriotic reverence for these things, these buildings. And I looked at the Capitol and I get the same feeling. You have a feeling that there's just something corrupt.
Something amiss, right?
Something amiss, yes. Yeah. Trump, the embrace of Donald Trump is an attempt to send an outsider in to somehow change it, to somehow address it.
Right. And because that's what it requires. And the idea of a great reform act, and I don't know what the policy prescriptions are on this. We're not going to tell Americans what their policy prescription should be on this, right? But whether it's term limits, whether it's lobbying restrictions for people who have worked in the House, mean members. You choose to go and work for a member and you're a chief of staff or something, you shouldn't have to go flip straight back into lobbying that same office. I don't know. Maybe there's a First Amendment argument in response to that. I don't know. But whatever it is, there needs to be this list of 10 things that the president and his team put together as a proposal when he gets reelected, as a proposal for, hey, okay, we rode the storm of the Russian nation, of the impeachment, of the laptop being covered, all these falsehoods, all these narratives. We rode all of that. Now is the time for great reform. Now is the time for great reform. That's what I think the president needs to say in his speech on January the 20th at the inauguration. The last one was American Carnage, right? You remember that? Yes. American Carnage. This American Carnage stops here. They have worked so hard over the last 4 years, I know, to stop the American Carnage. And specifically, Carnage was talking about the mass exploitation of jobs and the opioid crisis and the wars abroad and all of that was just ripping the heart out of American towns and cities and ripping the people, the children, the young men and women who have been sent off to those war zones, ripping them out of those towns and cities. So the American Carnage stuff worked, and it was the right thing for the right time. I think that was the right time. We're not about tearing down these institutions. Listen, I think if you have to do it, you're going to do it. Americans are very good at doing that, right? My country knows that. But the first idea is to reform them. It's for great overarching reform of these organizations.
Yes, and the first way to reform is to hold those who are responsible for things like Russia lie, where mediocre bureaucrats took control of tools that we had put in place to, fight the Soviet Union, and use them politically against a political candidate and then a president. You have to hold them accountable. They have to be prosecuted. And it can't be just a couple of FBI agents who did the obvious things. This story has to be told. And there is a great disappointment out there in the heartland among Trump supporters is that we've gone years, and we know the story. I wrote a book on the story. It's a readable book, and you should go to the Russia Lie and the Russia Lie and read it. We know the story. The dots are not hard to connect. Some prosecutor should connect the dots. There should be a report. There should be prosecutions. People should be held accountable.
Should there be a special prosecutor right now for the Biden laptop, for the Hunter Biden laptop?
I think the purpose of a special prosecutor is to investigate. And whenever the idea of a special prosecutor is broached, the other side is sort of shamed, like, what are you afraid of an investigation? So, I don't think much can be investigated between now and Tuesday. It would be a statement on Trump's part that this is very serious and maybe a way to get the media to finally cover it. The fact that the media cover this is the story.
We're going to go to a quick break here. Why don't you, that break, head over to the National Post.com/swap. They made me take the hat off. They said they want to see my gorgeous hair instead. So you are, but we've got the hat here. We got the hat here in it stays on the desk. There's no censorship going on here. They just love the hair so much. So who am I to argue with them? Welcome back to the National Pulse today. We do have a lot of breaking news. One little nugget of information that I think is interesting as well is that how good friends we are with Citizen Free Press and Kane of citizenfreepress.com. I always recommend everybody check that out as a great news aggregate. Kane writes to me in the break. He says, Bing, which is, I believe, Microsoft's search engine. I don't use Bing, but apparently Bing has removed Citizen Free Press from their search results. When you search for Citizen Free Press on Bing, it doesn't come up. Now, I'm not sure how big Bing is, but that's abhorrent as far as I'm concerned. So don't use Bing. Don't use Google either. I use DuckDuckGo. I find it to be much more... Tom, you're in from out of town. In the scene in just a moment. But I'm interested in the audience's interest in what's happening in Pennsylvania. So I wanted to get your thoughts on that. A lot of people worried about Pennsylvania. The Trafalgar poll yesterday actually showed the president taking the lead in Pennsylvania. A lot of rioting taking place right now, which I believe can only help the president. Nevertheless, it's not something we like to see. So what's going on? What are your thoughts in your home state?
Palpable feeling, and people feel very strong in one way or the other. I'm not sure that I trust the polls because I think people are also holding their cards close to their vest. There's so much political controversy now that I think people have decided that they want to go in the poll, they want to go in the voting booth, cast their ballot. I don't even know how these polls take place. What, do you get a phone call and someone asks you for information? Yeah. We're all conditioned now to not cooperate at that moment. Phone rings 7 times a day with someone trying to do that for some reason or another. And I'm conditioned to... I don't know how effective these polls can be. They might be effective. But I think my read is that Trump will win Pennsylvania. But I don't know. I had the same gut feeling, and I published it in 2016. I was one of the few people that said he's going to win the Rust Belt and win the election, and I knew that's what he was trying to do, and that's what he did. And he's making the same play. I
just want the audience to know that right before we walked into the studio today, Tom hands me, in fact, throws onto my lap a bound folder of all the articles you've written, right? Over the last, is it just 4 years or something?
Yeah.
But it's massive. You have been a busy boy over the last, and this is your job. No. You're an attorney.
But I'm a full-time practicing attorney, and I started to do it in 2016 to sort of, I was reading a lot from people in Washington and New York about what people in Pennsylvania feel. Right. So I'm a guy in Pennsylvania. I understand what we feel and why we feel it. So I wrote from that perspective, and I was one of the few writing from that perspective, and I'm certainly one of the few that predicted the election the way I did.
Don't you think it's wonderful? We drove past the Washington Post building earlier. Don't you think it's wonderful when somebody in that building writes about how you're feeling out in Pennsylvania? It's magnificent to see that. I remember the same fundamental misreading and arrogance that comes along with it was what won us Brexit effectively in early 2016 or mid 2016. You had these liberal lovey reporters living in £1 million apartments in Islington in North London, fancy pants place, writing articles for the Guardian newspaper that only the teachers read, right? It's just that kind of paper. And they're writing about how, manual labour workers feel in Sunderland, in Newcastle, and how fishermen feel in Hull. They had absolutely no earthly idea what was going on. Do you sense at the moment that anybody has their finger on the pulse in the national media, commentators that you see on TV or that you read in the paper, anybody has their finger on the pulse with this?
The one that usually has his finger on the pulse actually is the president. I think he reads the tea leaves, better than most. I think the national pulse, you understand what's going on, and it's going on.
But I'm not out here calling elections. Here's the thing. There are people who are paid an awful lot of money, the Nate Silvers of the world, to prognosticate over the results of elections. And I just don't, we had the late Pat Cadell. He was on the old Breitbart News Daily show with Steve Bannon all the time back in 2016, in the run-up to 2016, before Steve went to the
Ryan scores a dream kitchen, and firefighters Local 1375 tear up the old floors, literally.
To be able to participate in this Military Makeover Show gives me an opportunity to not just talk about doing things, but to actually do things and give something.
You know, what is happening? For instance, this Hunter Biden laptop. The media can try to bury it all they want, but people know about it. People are sharing it. People are sharing stories. And there is a network out there where, you know, people are getting necessary knowledge on these issues.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely right. Look, I just want to reset for you guys up there, because there is now so much breaking news that I feel like it's kind of exhausting just to try and follow along. It's one that we're going to be breaking on thenationalpulse.com, hopefully in this break coming up. Is Hunter Biden effectively, as far as you can scream over email, right? Screaming over email that he's not a partner or even a partner. It's not a joint venture with CEA, right? This firm that supplies the Chinese military. He's the managing director of it. He's the managing director of a firm that is used by foreign and hostile military. And I know people are going to look at this and go, oh, you know, it's a long email. Where do I look? Look at the whole thing. Look at the mindset of this guy. And ask yourself and your neighbors and your kids' teachers the question. You think he wouldn't sell the country for his house in Sweden? For his expenses claims that his own company doesn't want to pay? Back in a second. I was that close to hitting publish, and at this point I'm not even teasing you. It's a problem for me because I need more copy up on the site. I was that close to having finished the article about CFC and Hunter Biden, and then to come back from break. So in the next break, I assure you, we'll get this done. Welcome back to the National Pulse. I'm editor-in-chief of nationalpulse.com, and I'm especially grateful to those of you out there sharing this show, making sure we reach more people. Every day the audience grows, and we're grateful for it. You can find us on Roku, on Apple TV, on Pluto, in Chicago under Dish Channel 219. You can find us on YouTube when they're not throttling us and chopping up my audio and hiding the show from people like they did yesterday and some of today. Okay. And I'm really grateful for you out there who go out to find us. And I just want to make mention once again of our lovely Where's Hunter hat here that's going to rest on my table. Not just for the rest of this show, maybe until this issue gets taken seriously. And Jack Maxey and the War Room team, and I'm in touch with them constantly throughout the day, as you guys will probably understand from the relationship we have in terms of the research that's going into the thing. They got more as well. They've got entire folders of wire transfers that they're going through and poring over right now. So we're going to have some news for you in the morning at 10 a.m. on the War Room also. Stick around here on Real America's Voice for more after this show. Turn back to our guest in studio. It's come 4 hours to be with us today, which is technically
I have to go back tonight, right?
Yeah, you got to go back at some point. Tom's really grateful for having you here, and you wrote this awesome book which really taught me a lot, The Russia Lie, right? And people can get that at therussialie.com. Actually, it's not incredibly searchable on Google and whatnot either, so we're fixing that live right now to make sure that more and more people can see this thing, because I think they have to. And it was how many weeks ago that you came on this show, and I said, look, why is the Russia Lie important now while everything is going on? And you said, because you've got to understand that to sense, right? Right.
And I didn't even expect, that they would go to the well one more time. And they did. This laptop came out. They need a way to cloud attention, to distract attention, and they pulled the Russian disinformation thing again. Adam shifted it, and that had many effects. One of the effects is that it shows us how silly the whole idea of Russia interference always was. It's just a pretext. It's something they're using to distract it from things they don't want people to see, and they did the same with the Podesta emails.
Right.
But it really upset Hunter Biden's former business association. What's his name? Bobolinsky?
Yeah, Bobolinsky.
Bobolinsky, yes. And they went to the well once too often because that was the straw that broke him. He didn't like being associated with Russian disinformation. He said that very clearly on Fox last night, and he wants to come forth, say everything that's going on, his own conclusion that Joe Biden is compromised by us, and he wants the American people to know in advance of this election.
Do you work as a defense attorney or the prosecution mainly, or?
I work on the civil side. Okay. So when businesses fight businesses,
yeah.
I do that, or if a partner is fighting the business. So
let me ask you this question with that kind of with your legal mindset hat on, and your trial lawyer hat on. If you hear Bobolinsky going on to the biggest television show in the country, and he says that you said plausible deniability, right? Plausible deniability to your face. I remember Tucker was asking him the question. He said it out loud. What is your response? How do they defend it? How does Team Biden? How does Jim Biden? How do all these guys defend it? Because it's so long, you could say fake news.
The way that they typically defend against it is they find the person making the accusation, they do all kinds of research about the person, and they try to destroy him. But this person seems particularly well suited for that. He's ready for that. He's very...
you don't go on the biggest national television channel not being...
Right. He's very competitive. He was a Penn State wrestler, and he's very offended by what they did. So I think they've sort of met their match on that one. I don't think any of that's going to work, and I think he's going to persist this stuff. And
so then what did he say? Well, then what did they say? He lied. He was out of his mind. He was drunk. My client never said that. He misheard.
Well, they still probably have plausible deniability. I'm not sure they do, but however they structure these transactions, they're going to do it in a way that it's going to be very difficult to connect to Joe Biden. And he's going to say, I don't know why that email says what it does, but I have nothing to do with this. I have $30,000 in the bank, and that's just the way I am. And they've structured these in such a way that you would really have to dig deep. You'd have to have investigatory power to figure out what they're doing. But from 20,000 feet or even less, it looks like they're selling influence to make money.
Right.
That's what's happening.
Tom, we're going to go 20 seconds, but I want to bring you back to something that you've said a couple of times now. It pricked my ears up, because I had no idea that Joe Biden was going around pretending to be some kind of working man. And I didn't realize he was selling this message. You know how campaigns, they target different messages to different parts of the country. So I don't see what you see. There's no ads in DC of Joe Biden with a lunch pail, going off to whistling his way off to work. But that's the way he's trying to present himself to the Pennsylvania audience.
Yes, he says he's from Scranton. He spent some part of youth there before moving to Delaware. So he presents himself as Lunch Pail Joe, the working man. And sometimes his diction even changes, at the time of the election, so that he sounds a little like the working man. And I'm sure he, tested the word chump before he used it, because it's a word the working man uses. And that's how Joe Biden does it. He's pretending to be a ham and egger. But when you have this kind of business with China, for this much money, he's not a ham and egger. He's not a working man. It pulls the mask off the Lone Ranger, and that's what they have to avoid between now and Tuesday.
Thomas Farnham's over here making me hungry now. I want some ham and eggers myself. All right, we're in just a moment with more here at the National Pulse. I want you all to actually make sure you go to thenationalpulse.com in this break, because I am going to publish this story right here, right now, right for you. Premiere on this show, Real America's Voice, Raheem Kassam, Thomas Farnham return right now. I did it. I did it. I literally just did it. That was just theatrics, but I did it. We've published the headline. Welcome back to the show. The headline is sometimes the hardest and most fun part of this. So this is the story of Hunter Biden that we're breaking here on the National Pulse, exclusive to the National Pulse. Go and do what you did yesterday. Get it, share it to everybody. Get it. Here's one that never let me share their website. anymore is Reddit. Go throw it on as many Reddit channels as you can. I can sense that they are censoring National Pulse things. Go and do it yourselves. If you're on Reddit, make sure you're trying it on there. Here's the deal. Chump. As Joe Biden. Huffy Hunter expenses emails. This is the headline of it. Huffy Hunter expenses emails. Biden claims he's managing director at Chinese military-linked firm, demands massive cash reimbursements. I'm using something incorrectly, by the way. It's not a house in Sweden. It's a House of Sweden, which is a lavish office building here in Washington. He's begging for all sorts of expenses claims back, saying that he should be able to charge whatever he wants to the company. The company comes back and is like, Hunter. Was it the Huntmeister?
You think that was in...
The Hunkmeister.
Hunkmeister.
Referred to himself as the Hunkmeister. One of the emails we're going to be dropping tomorrow. Hunkmeister, listen to me. Expenses claims get denied when you're expensing for things that aren't legitimate. He goes on a rant in this email. I'm going to read it to you right now. Mervyn and Kevin. Mervyn Yan and Gong Dong, that is. Mervyn and Kevin. The House of Sweden is my DC office space. It will be reimbursed. As for CEFC accounting, going over my expense report, I will personally sue you and Kevin, the accountant and the accountant, if you forward my expense report to them. I am sorry to be so direct, but for the final time, I am not in business with CEFC. I have never been a partner with CEFC. I am amazed that my fellow board members do not see the inherent conflict such an arrangement, if true, would create for the chairman, Mervyn and Kevin and Jackie personally. Under US law, if the chairman and equity corporation partnered with a US LLC, Owasco, that's the wire transfer I popped this morning, by the way, through ownership of his wholly owned US LLC, Hudson West, was in reality and practice CEF employees and money to operate a privately held company in enormous conflict of interest. The notion that you and Kevin and Jackie are insisting that such an illegal scheme is in fact your understanding of how this company is organized, well then I would say in light of the ongoing investigations, you should not be surprised by warrant being issued relating to this. This is how he talks to his business. That is why I am stating unequivocally, with no room for different opinions or interpretation, I am not in CEFC. I am not partners with CEFC. I am not employed nor funded by CEFC. My expenses will not be reviewed by any CEFC employee. The president of CEFC has no right, nor ability to terminate HW3. I am the managing director of CEFC. I have complete authority as to who I hire and who I fire. I have employees that work for me in DC. Reimbursement of expenses is not a matter for the board. The decision lies with the managing director alone. If you refuse to sign the wire, Kevin, I will have you removed from the board for obstruction of equity holder rights. I am the only equity holder on the board. I will bring suit in the Chancery of Delaware, which, as you know, is my home state. And I am privileged to have worked with and know every judge on the Chancery Court. Because the chairman is unavailable, and his equity, according to you, has been transferred to the president in direct violation of the LLC agreement, I am certain, court will issue subpoenas for both the president and the chairman, and if they refuse to comply, the court will seek to pierce the corporate veil of CEFC through any of its remaining holdings in the US. I could go on. I'm still quoting him. I'd go on, but I don't think it's necessary. All expenses submitted will be reviewed for any obvious error in the moment, and an account by HW3 will review when preparing HW3 taxes. Thank you in advance for your cooperation. If my expenses are submitted and not wired into the Owasco account today, I will file an injunction to freeze all HW accounts at Cathay Pacific and simultaneously seek a determination of control of HW3. My fellow board members, distance on control of my capital in my account for my company is counterproductive in the extreme. Your insistence on control by an entity that has no legal connection to HW3 by contract or verbal agreement will be the single biggest reason you will become even more entangled in issues that will swallow your careers for the next 10 years. Sincerely, R. Hunter Biden, Managing Director, Partner, and 50% equity holder. And it's on thenationalpulse.com. We can throw that up on the screen as well. We've got 2 minutes here, Tom.
You know, there is so much there, and it requires and demands further digging. But the great pretense of the left is that they are open to the truth, and particularly those that choose to go into the media. They go into the media because they claim a vocation to seek the truth, and they have this annoying self-regard. Somehow are able to speak truth to power. Here's your chance. You know, you have 27,000 emails. You come and look at them. You find the inferences. It is selling influence with Chinese entities receiving reimbursement and those ways that we don't completely understand, but 10 is held by H for the big guy, Joe Biden.
Tom, why would you put in an email, I'm going to sue you in a court where I know everyone, and they're just going to be effectively implying you're going to be doing him favors? Are you allowed to do that?
None of this stuff looks good.
None of it looks good. Tom Farnan, therussialie.com, author of The Russia Lie. Really good for you being here in studio with us today. We can put The Russia Lie up on screen real quick if we can. If not, make sure you go over to therussialie, there it is, .com. It's $5. It's the best $5 I ever spent. Make sure you get yourself a copy. Read through it. You can read through it in one evening. Make it this evening. We'll see you again 10 a.m. at the War Room, 3 p.m. National Pulse tomorrow. In the meantime, go get